Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I could just ask everyone to take a moment and silence their cell phone. Please note that this meeting is in fact being taped by FCTV. Take a moment to introduce members of the board. Starting at my far right, or the audience's far left, is Jerry Patamus. He is an associate member. Moving to the audience's right is Frank Duffy. He is a full voting member. Next is Mark Finneran, who is also a full voting member. My name is James Morris. I currently serve as the chair of the zoning board. Next is Suzanne Murphy, who is the full voting member and our clerk. And at the end is Scott Peterson, who is a full voting member. We're also joined this evening by Noreen Stockman, our zoning administrator, and our recording secretary, Ashley DeMello. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the state zoning statutes as well as the town zoning bylaws and reviewing and voting on applications. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public to allow full and fair discussion of the project prior to rendering a decision. To begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcement for the hearing and read pertinent information from the file. The applicant or the applicant's representative will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation. Time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant. Next, the public will be invited to comment. Public comment should be directed only at the project. Please refrain from making any derogatory or personal statements. It can include an opinion in favor or opposition, or to ask a specific question about the project. Comments should be limited to 2 minutes. The chair will limit discussion in the interest of time if comments become repetitive. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized by the chair, should come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record. Please speak into the microphone. It does not amplify your voice, but is provided for the benefit of the FCTV viewers. The board may continue the hearing to a future date and time. Otherwise, when the board is satisfied that enough information has been presented to make a decision, the hearing will be closed. After the hearing is closed, no more testimony may be taken. The board shall then discuss the project amongst themselves, make a motion to approve or deny the application. The motion will be followed by a summary of key findings and conditions. The affirmative vote of 4 members, supermajority, is required for the approval of special permits, variances, or appeals. A split vote, 3-2, is a failure to carry and will result in a denial. All Zoning Board of Appeals decisions may be appealed as provided for in Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 17. First up on this evening's agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is public comment. This public comment is for anything that is not specifically on the agenda. Does any member of the public care to make a public comment on something that is not on the agenda? Seeing none. Next up, we have a continuation of application 110-22 Keller, 72 Pheasant Lane, East Falmouth, requesting a special permit to allow a spa/pool.
All right, we have Susan Keller, 72 Pheasant Lane, East Falmouth, Mass., applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to sections 240-11.3A, parentheses 4, and 240-10-2A, formerly 243C and 240-69E, the Code of Falmouth to allow a spa/pool on subject property known as 72 Pheasant Lane. And from different departments, we have no comment from water, no comment from assessors, planning has no comment, Health's comment is there is a sufficient setback between the proposed pool and the leaching pit. However, the pool will have a 20-foot setback to any future septic system that may be required. BSC Group should provide a leaching reserve area that meets setbacks to ensure a future leaching field can be installed without variances. You don't want to create the issue, you don't want to create the need to issue variances in the future. Engineering has number 1. This application was reviewed for impacts to the public rights-of-way and public utilities. Pheasant Lane is a public right-of-way. No alterations are proposed in the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way will require filing a permit with the engineering division. Number 2, any connections or alternations to public utilities would require permission from the appropriate town departments. 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or public rights-of-way. And number 4, where this project falls in the jurisdiction of the Concom, we defer to the Concom for stormwater management, Concom being Conservation Commission, for stormwater management and construction erosion controls. And that's all I have for comments.
Correspondence or letters in support or opposition?
There are no letters in, I didn't see them. Oh, they're right on top. I support the request of Susan Keller. 1 in support, 2 in support. Sorry, those are new. I was just looking yesterday. I apologize. That's what I have.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Morris, members of the board. For the record, I'm Bob Herman. I'm a Falmouth attorney and I represent the applicant Susan Keller. A little over a year ago, Ms. Keller had a spa pool installed on her property at 72 Pheasant Lane. This Google aerial actually shows the spa. It measures 7 feet across and 19 feet in length. It's one of those pools that creates a wave and you can swim against it. It's what goes about 2.5 feet into the ground and from 2.5 feet on average above the ground. It was installed in error, too close to the sideline. The spa, despite being a small structure, as structures go, is a structure under our bylaw, and the building commissioner would enforce the requirement that it be set 10 feet from the property line. It was installed 8.2 feet from the property line, so it's a little bit too close. The zoning compliance would be cured if the pool were moved only slightly, so that no corner of it was closer than 10 feet. One corner is 8.2 and the other corner is 9.3 feet. There's no reason it wasn't done right in the first place except for carelessness or unknowing. There's no advantage to the fact that it was too close to the line. It wasn't known to the owner that there was a problem. The out-of-town installer apparently didn't realize the permits that were required to install the permit. There's no real excuse for it at all. But sometimes a small error can be ignored under the law. We call it de minimis. And the building commissioner's policy, and we've discussed it with respect to this case, of course, is that if it was a foot or less, he would consider that de minimis. He would not require it to be relocated. He has told me, the building commissioner has, that he would hope that there's a way that the pool does not have to be moved. And he's written a letter to the board, which you have, the building commissioner has, saying that he would have no objection to the board granting relief in this case. The cost of moving the spa pool is relatively tremendous. The pool weighs about 1.5 tons. You'd have to excavate around it. You have to use a crane, bring a crane to the site, which is no small endeavor, and excavate and then relocate, create the level area for it to sit on in the ground, all to move it less than 2 feet. I believe that there is a way for the board to solve this problem, and that's what I'd like to discuss with you. First, so this shows the site. I also want to show you the, just to confirm, this is the 2005 aerial, and I just show that to confirm that the house and garage, everything was existing more than 10 years ago, so these are all non-conforming structures. But more particularly, the garage is a non-conforming structure. It also is too close to the same property line, also happens to be a little too close to this property line. It happens to be 9.3 feet from the sideline to the north, as is one corner of the spa pool. I wanted you to see that, just as confirmation that they're protected structures. This is the site plan for the property. It shows the pool. The pool itself at this corner is 8.2 feet. There is a low deck just a few inches off the ground that surrounds the pool. A deck is part of the structure. we would remove the portion of the deck that's closer to the line so that we're looking at 8.2 feet as the setback at this corner, 9.3 feet over here. So, how can we fix this? The garage, as I said, is a non-conforming structure. It's too close to the line. The zoning bylaw and the state statutes and the case law says that a non-conforming structure can be extended. Also, Falmouth has repeatedly applied the protection to non-conforming structures to accessory structures and has allowed one accessory structure to be replaced by another accessory structure, sometimes larger than the structure that's pre-existing and non-conforming. In fact, in the last couple of months, the board did that in the case of property on on Gansett Road. And I'll just skip to a plan that shows that you've done this, and then we'll discuss how you could do it here. In a case for Alexis Borasi, a special permit that was just issued about a month ago, there were pre-existing non-conforming accessory structures, including this garage structure in which an addition was approved, but also a shed which is in the front yard, too close to the street, and the board has allowed that to be removed. And this is the structure that would be removed. This new accessory structure, new shed, was allowed a little bit bigger than the one removed, and also even a second new shed was approved in this location, and the swimming pool was allowed to be rebuilt closer to the street. I mention that only because it's one of a number of cases we're aware of where the board has granted relief based on pre-existing non-conforming accessory structures. I have a couple of other cases I could refer to you that I've brought with me, but I'd like to discuss this case. This is a detail of the plan that you were just looking at, but on it I've drawn in the yellow just an example of how one might extend the garage. You might make the one-car garage into a two-car garage, and that would be an extension of it that would be in line with the existing non-conforming garage. It would not be substantially more detrimental, even though this corner of the garage would be 8.2 feet from the line, the same as the existing corner of the pool. There is simply no way that the board would find that allowing this spa pool to stay where it is will have impacts that are substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing nonconformity, the same nonconformity that we have, that is being a little bit too close to the line. And I would ask you to take into account the nature of this structure and its impact on the neighborhood. To point out that our zoning bylaw allows by right a shed up to 100 square feet, not just one, doesn't say that. You could have two or more sheds, as in the Borasi case, put as close as 3 feet to a property line by right. Those sheds could each by right be 22 feet high. So there isn't anything that is more detrimental or could be more detrimental to the neighborhood about this spa pool than the existing nonconforming garage or what one could do by right on the property. A mistake was made. That's all it was. A mistake was made, and The Conservation Commission has approved what's there because it's within jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, within 100 feet of wetland. Moving it less than 2 feet would be disruptive to the environment, and taking into account the nature of the structure, the nature of the nonconformity, the expense, and the disruption of fixing this problem by requiring it to be moved just a couple of feet is something I think the board can avoid, and I sincerely hope that you will do so. I'm not aware of any opposition to this request. We do have those couple of letters in support, and the building commissioner is not opposed to it. He just felt he couldn't do it. Your board could decide that in this case, given the nature of the structure, it is de minimis, or the board can grant a special permit to allow this change to the nonconformity, and that would resolve this. I've heard different costs for what it would cost to move this structure, and they all start with, they're all 5-figure numbers, and quite a range, so I don't want to give you a particular figure, but it's expensive. I'm happy to try to answer questions for you.
Start over here, Scott.
Thank you. I guess one difficulty I have with this is the fact that it is supposed to have the 10-foot setback, as we all know. I couldn't find, I appreciate the letter from the building commissioner. I didn't see any reference to de minimis quantities in the bylaws. So for me, there should be a 10-foot setback for this pool or pool spa. I guess I struggle with the homeowner not going back to the installer, and how between the owner and the installer that they didn't understand that there would be setbacks. And so why aren't they trying to cure the issue prior to coming to us? So quite honestly, I think we need to know who the pool installer is so that we can contact them as a board to make sure this never happens again. I empathize with the homeowner. We certainly don't want people incurring costs, but it's like one failure after another. And I think that, unfortunately, I would be leaning towards moving the pool, quite honestly.
Well, I think there's a question there, and let me respond. I have talked to the installer who's in Hyannis. The installer has not been helpful, has not accepted the responsibility for curing this problem, indicated that he's installed a lot of pools and never had this problem before, and didn't seem to think that it was a structure that required the setback. The purpose of our application and the purposes of the board are not to punish. That's not the purpose here. It is not your purpose. To try to avoid problems like this in the future, that makes some sense. Certainly the building commissioner should be concerned about that. And you're right, the requirement is 10 feet. Sometimes there are small errors, as I've said. The building commissioner has told me, and he told me after checking with his predecessors, that the policy has been more than 1 foot. They're not going to consider it de minimis. I think the best course of action is for this board, even if you don't choose to call it de minimis, you'll still take into account the nature of the structure and how minimal the impact is. Well, there's no impact on abutters. But I think you have the authority to, simply because it turns out that this is a case in which there is an existing nonconformity. The garage is nonconforming with the same setback problem, and this would be in line with it, and the board in the past has accepted that you can have nonconformities with respect to accessory structures and allow those to be replaced under the standards that it can't be substantially more detrimental. Now, does that make a lot of sense that if you have a conforming structure, you can't make it non-conforming? But if you have a non-conforming structure, it can be more non-conforming as long as it's not changing the nature of the non-conformity, or if it does, then you make a determination that it's not substantially more detrimental. You've done that in the past. You can do it in this case. Do you feel a little bad about doing it because here's somebody who made a mistake, who should have taken more responsibility? And you know, whether it's the homeowner who may well end up paying for this because a lawsuit's going to cost more than the cost of moving it, or whether it's the perhaps irresponsible or simply not paying attention installer who should be responsible, doesn't change the fact that it's simply wasteful to do it, does not serve the public in any way, may have adverse environmental impacts, and you can avoid it. Are you, by doing so, encouraging this to happen again? I don't think so. Even without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars to move it, the homeowner has incurred substantial costs dealing with the Conservation Commission and the surveyors and legal fees and filing fees and so on. But I think you should focus on the fact that this Board of Appeals can be a board of relief. It can solve this problem for people, and that's one of the things boards of appeals do when it can. And you can in this case. So I hope you'll do it.
Thank you.
I have two parts. This blaming the installer thing kind of bothers me. If you live on the water like this applicant does, they know they can't do anything without conservation's permission, putting a structure in the yard. They know that. They absolutely know that. I don't even know how they got the garage in. I haven't been able to find any paper. When was the garage installed?
Before 1975.
Before 75, okay. But they still know, when you live that close, I could have thrown a rock right in from standing there.
Well, I point out that these structures, first of all, it requires an understanding that this is a structure. Happens to be a homeowner who only has not lived in the property for long. I don't know what the familiarity of the homeowner with wetlands regulations
You buy on the water,
This
you
is-
better learn.
It is not your job to punish people. It just isn't. And you do have the ability to solve this. I don't know why you would allow two new accessory structures and an expanded pool on Gansett Road, and except for the fact that you don't like the fact that the installer did this wrong, or the homeowner did it wrong, you wouldn't grant relief in this case. I just think that when I describe this case to people, they can't believe that this person may have to move that less than 2 feet. And I understand that the laws are necessarily arbitrary, and I understand that they need to be enforced, and I understand that we have to make decisions that discourage people from doing it. But this is a case where the error is close to de minimis. The nature of the structure is, you could put the 100-foot sheds 22 feet high, 3 feet from the line. I hope that you'll have the empathy to allow this to stay the way it is.
All set, thank you.
I have some problems here. Initially, well, let me just describe to you how I approach the work that I do, and this one in particular. I realized it was just a swimming pool slash spa. So I pulled into the yard, and as the continuance went, we could not see the stakes for the corners of the property. But further, we asked for the property line. There was nowhere that I could go in and determine how far this structure was from the property line, because one of the corner stakes was on one side of the fence, one was on the other. On smaller properties, it's easy. You can look down through and you can determine. That wasn't there. But I was able to figure it out anyway. And I have a few problems as well. Now, if you look at this drawing you have here, plus the two drawings that you've submitted, and then if you compare it to that aerial photo, you'll see that the garage is not placed properly. It vectors off at a much greater angle. But that's just a mistake on the prints. You said there was no advantage to the homeowner. If one goes there and looks at that spa, you can see exactly why they placed it the way they did. Because anyone in the spa can have a look at the ocean. And the fence was not there until conservation caught it. So in my mind, that's exactly why that thing was placed in that location. And the installer was from out of town. I mean, they have bylaws in Hyannis as well. And for me to believe that he was unfamiliar with setbacks is too much. And also, if you look at the history of this property, they failed to get a permit for the electrical or the plumbing. Well, that's all I have.
Frank? Mr. Armentis, I'd like to just clarify what it is we're looking to do here tonight. You've applied for a special permit under 240-11.3A for increase in lot coverage.
Oh, yes, that's an additional request.
So you're looking for several special permits, not just one, right?
Well, the two, the special permit, because the spa structure increases the lot coverage over the 20% slightly. But
Was the property already over 20% with the house and the garage? You know?
let's look at the plan to be sure. The existing information is there. I think we'll find that information. So the lot would have been over the 20%, but it was, as I said, those structures predate, they're more than 10 years old. In fact, they're
All right,
much
I
older
accept
than
the
that.
fact that you have the garage and you have the house in there over 10 years old, so we really can't do anything about them. But there's no existing, so this would be the first special permit allowing the lot coverage over the 20%.
That's right, but certainly lot coverage between 20 and 25%
Is allowed.
necessitated only because of a spa pool. Would be routinely granted by this board,
Yeah,
as you did recently with a swimming pool on, in Saconaset Hills, just within the last 3
That's
months.
probably true. I would accept that. So, all right, but the second part of your special request here is under 240-11.3A or 2A? 11.240,
I think it's
10,
240-10-2A1,
excuse, 2A1,
the former
right.
240.
And that says, pre-existing non-conforming structures or uses may be extended, so on and so forth. And is that the authority that you're relying on, that we have, are you asking us to rely on that authority to grant you the second part of your special permit? And
Well,
that is-
yes, but not just that as authority. The decisions, such as Belalta, that was, that concerns the fact that with a finding of not substantially more detrimental, the board can grant an intensification of a nonconformity. And here we have the nonconformity of the garage structure being too close to the line, and as I suggested with the sketch I prepared, an extension of that would bring the garage the same distance. This board has repeatedly applied that provision, allowing a non-conforming structure to be replaced or added onto, applied that to accessory structures. Our bylaw does not distinguish in what you've read between principal structures and accessory structures, and you did it just in the last couple of months for the property on Gansett.
Correct. It doesn't distinguish between principal and accessory structures, but it does qualify the non-conforming structure as being pre-existing. Now, I can accept that the house is and the garage is, but I have difficulty convincing myself the pool is, because that was just recently built.
Of course, the pool isn't, but neither were all the structures that the board allowed recently on Gansett Road. And in one sense, it's the non-conforming use of the property. The bylaw refers to structures or uses. The use is residential use. We have a garage that's extending into the setback area. We want to have another residential accessory use, but it's all a residential property. We have a nonconformity over there. We wouldn't ask for this except under the circumstances that the downside of not approving this, which I maintain you can approve, is a tremendous excessive cost and disruption.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry?
I guess maybe I disagree that I don't think this is significantly adverse to the neighborhood. Mistakes were made. Concom has now approved it,
Yes?
so that's been rectified. The others haven't brought it up, so I won't dwell on it, is how will you correct Board of Health's concern about a reserve area?
Well, I have to apologize because although I requested that BSC prepare the plan that was requested, I did not follow up this last week and get it, and I haven't gotten it. I do note that the location of the existing septic system is shown on the plan, and you can see there's plenty of room, it seems to be, to put a reserve area in the southeast corner of the lot. I don't think that's a problem at all. Furthermore, the referral from the health department was treating this as if it was vacant, we didn't already have the structure there and so on. But if the board were inclined to grant this special permit request and wanted us as a condition to submit a plan, or prior to the issuance of decision, submitting a plan showing a reserve area, we would do that.
I personally, I'd leave that up to the Board of Health with some type of condition that you comply with the Board of Health. I just reiterate, in the past, many years I've been on the board, we avoid the definition of de minimis. That we had a zoning advisor tell us, don't go down that rat hole. He didn't say rat hole, but it was sort of like it's a...
I offered that as an alternative way for you to look at this, but the special permit is the request under that this change to the nonconformity is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing nonconformity.
I agree with that. I have no other further questions.
Well,
But I'm not voting.
Mr. Robert, the two letters of support, do you know, you can certainly pull them off the file, where they are in the neighborhood? in
Yes, I
relation to this
do.
property?
I'm quite certain that it's this property of the corner.
And the second?
This property, corner. I did write to the owner of the property, abutting the closest, the owner who would be concerned about it. It's a rental property, he's not there. I talked to him on the phone. but it was about the possibility of buying a 2-foot strip of land, just a little bit that we would need, and adjusting the property line. I don't blame him for saying he just didn't want to get involved in adjusting his property lines, but he did not want to do that. But the reason I tell you that is he's fully aware of this, of our concern. He would have been noticed for this decision. I don't believe there's been any opposition to the request. There is, as you know from visiting the site,
We've been noticed after it was in.
fencing along both the property lines.
Follow-up questions?
The abutter would have not been a notice until after the pool was in.
Well, of course, I was referring to the notice for this hearing.
Okay.
Public comment or questions? Seeing none.
So just for the board's reference, 109 Gansett, the structures that were placed or replaced, none of them were closer to the lot line than were existing.
I don't disagree with that. They were larger structures, however, and it included an entirely new structure. And there is no requirement that in applying this section of the bylaw or the state law that you cannot intensify the nonconformity. In fact, the case law specifically goes into that. It says if the legislature wants to change that language, the legislature can do so. But even our own bylaw, in discussing this and giving some standards, doesn't say that you cannot intensify. It doesn't even say you can't create a new nonconformity. It says the board shall consider if there's a new nonconformity, which there isn't here, or an intensification of it. But the case law is pretty clear on that. I've, in other cases, recently given you some case law that covers this. I'd be happy to give you the Belalta case, which I've given you, is directly on point.
Do you have a follow-up question, Jerry?
Point of order for you, whether we enter into discussion before we close the
We'll
hearing.
have discussion before we close the hearing.
Okay, I know that was an issue we discussed.
Any additional follow-up questions?
Make a motion to discuss?
No motion needed, we'll just have discussion.
I guess in the application, the words that were stated is the installer placed the spa 8.2 feet from the property line. I think the board has always been very empathetic to all applicants. I wish that this never happened, quite honestly. None of us here hearing this case want to have this small move, but I'm still kind of in the camp that the owner should be getting back with the installer and they should be taking corrective action. It shouldn't be the board that has a bylaw that states 10 feet that should be taking the action. So that's my position. I appreciate everything that you've given me for information this evening. It's all prudent, but I think I'm going to kind of stay where I am.
I totally agree with Scott.
Mark?
I have nothing more.
Frank?
Well, I look at this as an application for a special permit, for basically with two-part special permit. One is the special permit under 240, 11.3A, which is to increase the lot coverage. The lot coverage was 23.7% with the pool. I think this is a special permit we probably would have granted almost as a matter of course had they come to us in the first place. I think they meet the requirements for that special permit. I frankly do not see any detriment to the neighborhood of this pool. Then the second part of the special permit they're looking for is to approve the nonconformity. That's the one I have a little bit more difficulty wrapping my arms around, but we have a bylaw that allows us to grant increases in nonconformities, which we have here. And I don't see any particular harm, again, to the neighborhood. I went out there, I looked at the property, I walked around. I don't think this is going to bother anybody, so.
Jerry?
I have nothing to add. I think everybody's maintaining their original positions.
I have to agree with you, Frank, about this. I don't like when these kind of mistakes are made. I think they can be avoided with a little more due diligence, but my personal feeling is, given the disruption to a sensitive coastal area, if this was to be removed or relocated, I think outweighs the issue, but
Good point.
I have but one vote.
Could I add one thing that's important? Thank you.
Certainly.
I appreciate that Mr. Duffy has really reminded me that my focus on the extension of the nonconformity is not all we applied for. And if the board should not grant the permit that will allow the spa to stay where it is, and the owner chooses to relocate as opposed to totally remove the spa, that relocation would still require the special permit for lot coverage. So I'd ask you to do as Mr. Duffy is suggesting, would be a matter almost of course, to grant the special permit for the lot coverage. Saying so, I don't want to take away from the arguments I've made for the rest of it, and I hope you'll take into account what the other members have said.
Frank, then Mark?
Chairman, that was one of the thoughts I had. We could move to grant the special permit to allow the increase in lot coverage because it's within the 20 to 25%, and it's something we probably would have allowed in the first place. And then that leaves the issue of the nonconformity. It sends it back downstairs to the building commissioner. And, you know, if the building commissioner is in a forgiving mood, he can forgive it. If he's not, he won't. We may hear about it again. But I think that's the call. The building commissioner really kind of dropped this on us. And I think it's his responsibility to make the call in the first place.
Mark, then Jerry? Sorry.
Is it proper for us to, in effect, split this application at this juncture?
I don't see necessarily why not, Frank.
Yeah, I think we can do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we can do it. I guess I had a question is, if we come to decisions, one decision would be to approve the lot coverage. Are we not going to say anything about the setback? If we disapprove it, does it set them back 2 years, or?
You make, if you wanted, you make a motion for the two special permits, have a split vote, pass one, deny the other, right?
And that would prevent them from coming back for 2 years? Doesn't go back to the building commissioner?
No, because if he comes back from the building commissioner, it's a different question.
Okay, I'm not going to get into legal.
Well, if I could add, the building commissioner, I think, has already made his determination. And unfortunately, it's not a matter of our moving it 1 foot in order to be less than a foot out of compliance. Building commissioner, I'm confident, there's nothing to send back to the building commissioner. The building commissioner has essentially denied the request that he let this go as de minimis, which he said he would if it was only a foot or less. So it isn't a matter of going back to the building commissioner. Can you make a decision granting part of a request and not part of another? Absolutely, you can do that. And your motion would simply, could be in 2 parts, or one motion that says yes to something and no to something. I regret that decision, at least half of it, but you can do it.
Question on this side.
We had a motion to close, I believe.
Did we? Who made that? I didn't catch that. Or is that your motion?
It is my motion.
There was a motion to close. Is there a second? That's Mark. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? How would the board like to proceed?
Frank, give us some guidance.
Well, I'll make a motion to start for discussion that we approve a special permit under section 240, 11.3A4 to increase lot coverage affected by the installation of the spa pool to a total of 23.7%.
Second.
second. You, Sam?
Sorry.
Do we need discussion on this motion?
I'm in agreement. I don't,
Mark? I have nothing else to add. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes. As for the second piece?
I think we should start with a positive motion, and if it's denied, rather than a negative motion, because that creates confusion.
And we need to put some findings in, as well as conditions on the first. Why don't we do our findings and conditions of the first before we move on to the second,
So I would make a motion that we approve,
or not?
the location of the spa pool, as the nonconformity of the spa pool under the authority of 240-10.2A1.
I'll second, just to keep it moving. Do we have any discussion on the second motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. That fails. Going
Three to
back to
two,
our.
right?
I put me down as an aye. but
That's,
it may-
I did hear
yeah.
the ayes.
Okay.
Put this down as a 3-2, I seconded, so fair is fair. Regarding back to the first motion, findings and conditions as to the lot coverage piece of the motion.
Findings and condition, it's in an RC zone, green pond overlay. Flood zone is AE 15 and AE 13. Lot size is 13,460. It's on a public road. Structure is 23.7, structure with paving is 24.9. Two letters in favor. You want me to list all the 240? It's a 240 11.3A, 4, and a 240 10.2A. And that's,
Testimony from the applicant's representative that the garage been in existence around 1978, so it would be definitely grandfathered. Anything else?
let's see anything.
All right, findings on this side? Conditions, do we really need any at this point, or?
Well, you're going to be issuing one decision, so I'm kind of assuming that your findings and conditions will be regarding your total decision here.
Did I hear him say they were going to remove the deck to the rear?
Yes. Testimony,
And that should be a condition, right?
yes.
Okay.
Thought that was if the pool was,
That's if the pool stays.
that's what I thought.
Testimony.
Well, I think that's the problem, is your vote was 3-2 regarding the location of the pool. So I guess that indicates that pool is to be moved, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So if you're expecting that, then presumptively they'll be moving it to a conforming location, correct?
Yes.
So it'd be up to them whether they want to move it further and keep the deck or not. Conditioning it might not be such a,
But though if the deck is raised, it's part of the pool and subject to setback. So you may want to request an amended survey to show the location.
That's reasonable.
But if we're denying the second part, why are we requiring
He's
any?
going to get a building permit before he does it. He has to.
I mean, he has to come back, the applicant has to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, we're denying it for whatever the reasons you guys want to state, for the second motion. And I didn't realize this was just one decision. I thought it was two decisions.
Well, it was one request. It was filed as one request.
But can we make two decisions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
So we need findings and conditions on the first condition as to lot coverage.
We did.
Okay, I got confused then.
and I don't know if it's a condition, but the garage is still improperly located or placed. You might want to make sure they correct it the next time they come around.
Well, that's over 10 years
It's
old.
over 10 years old, so it's no
Okay.
Well, I
longer.
mean, on the print, it's
Oh.
not proper.
Oh,
There's a much larger vector.
Sure.
It's
you meant the plans, I'm sorry. Sure, that's not unreasonable.
Then we
Up to
need a
the
couple of
engineer.
findings on the denial, too.
Frank, I'll defer to you. This is one of the first denials I've
Well-
had.
Yes, it was,
I think the
It's
people
over
that
1 foot.
wanted to deny it
Greater
should.
than 1 foot.
Greater
does
than
not
1
find
foot.
it- Does not find it's de minimis.
Oh,
Well, that's a policy of the building commissioner. It doesn't, somebody just pointed
listen.
out that it doesn't.
So why don't we just list the actual nonconformity
Yeah,
as the
list
site
the
setback.
actual nonconformity, yeah.
we disagree with the building commissioner, if that's appropriate. I don't know.
No, we're not.
I'm not disagreeing with this.
Okay.
We're actually upholding essentially his decision.
Do we have to have anything in there, conditions about the Board of Health?
That's only for.
We're denying it.
We're denying, so no.
So we find it more detrimental because of reasons of setback and things like that?
That's
Ah,
what the board wants to do.
I don't know.
I'm not prepared to make that
I'm
finding
not prepared to
personally.
make that one
Okay.
either.
We should have some findings while we're denying it.
Well, you got one, and that's,
That might be enough.
dimensional is enough, I think.
Okay.
Maureen, any suggestions? Anything else you'd like to see?
So if the pool's being relocated, presumptively you would anticipate them to refile with the amended location.
Yes.
So then what's the point of giving the separate decision for lot coverage if he's gonna have to come back anyway?
Well, here is one of the
Right.
existing nonconformities, so it brings it into harmony, at least the the garage and the house into compliance with the zoning bylaw, which is not a bad thing.
In the modified application.
So are you
of-
granting the lot coverage just for the house and the garage and not the pool?
No,
I don't know.
But the
you
pool,
can then add the pool, if the lot coverage issues is done.
I agree with Frank. But for the location, I think this probably would have been approved without an issue. But we have a sticky wicket. Anything else? All right. Voted on both of those, correct? Yes,
Yep.
That's it. Split decision on item number 1 this evening.
It's two different decisions, right? Keep on getting hung up.
Two decisions on one application.
Okay, very good.
Next up, we have application 006-23, Marisola Trustees, 15 Moses Road, North Falmouth, requesting a special permit to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming dwelling exceeding 20% lot coverage by structures.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to participate in this decision, okay?
Thank you. Record will so reflect, Duffy is recusing.
So Jerry's up.
We'll appoint Jerry.
You have no other choice.
That makes it easy.
Not always.
All set for me?
All set, go ahead.
All right, we have Joseph and Jessica Mirasola, I hope I said it correct, trustees, 15 Hunters Ridge Way, Hopkinton, Mass., have applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to sections 240-10-2A and 240-11.3A parentheses 4, formerly 243C and 240-69E of the Code of Falmouth to raise and rebuild the existing nonconforming dwelling exceeding 20% lot coverage by structure on subject properties known as 15 Moses Road, North Falmouth. And from town departments, we have no comment from planning. No comment assessors. Water department. The current water service is 3/4-inch copper. Service should be upgraded to 1 inch. Plan currently shows a water line with a meter pit. The meter pit must be removed and the meter moved inside the home or utility closed on the first floor. Board of Health, it says it's Seward. And we have engineering comments. Number 1, this application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Moses Road and Ocean View Ave are public rights-of-way in this area. The abandonment of the existing driveway and construction of the new driveway will require the filing a permit with the engineering division. What is shown on the plans would not receive an approved driveway permit. We do not permit trench drains for driveway use. We request that the board require the applicant to obtain an approved driveway permit from the engineering division prior to the closing of the hearing for this special permit. Number 2, any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. Number 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or public rights-of-way. Number 4, dry wells are shown on the plan for the roof as we typically recommend. Number 5, we recommend the following condition be included for any approval. Upon completion and construction, the applicant shall post the address for this residence. And number 6, where the project falls in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, we defer to the commission for stormwater management and construction erosion controls. That was from engineering. Concom had the meeting last night. And that's that. And that's what I have.
Letters, anything else?
I have no letters, right, Ashley? No letters.
Mr. Ahmed, good evening again.
Thank you, Mr. Morse, and board members. For the record, again, I'm Bob Ament, a Falmouth attorney, and I represent the applicants, Joseph and Jessica Mirasola, who own the property as trustees of their respective estate planning trusts. Joe Mirasola is here in the audience with me. The engineering and surveying for the project was been done by BSS Design, and Tom Bunker is right here with all of his knowledge. So the Mirasolas wish to raise, R-A-Z-E, remove the house that's pictured in front of you at 15 Moses Road. Moses Road is a short road along the water in North Falmouth. And you can see in this photograph the water behind the house. I've gotten in the habit of trying to bring to you an aerial photograph of the neighborhood, and I think it's helpful to set the scene, and I apologize for not doing so in this case, but I'm sure you've all been to the property and have a good idea about it. I do have some photos of the neighborhood that I think are helpful. This is Moses Road. This is a little bit of a house that's a twin to the Mirasola's house right next to theirs. The owner of that property has written a letter in strong support of the Mirasola's application to remove and build a new house. But you can see running all the way down the street are much taller houses, including this one at 15 Moses, which is pictured here, which was approved several years ago by the Board of Appeals in a very similar application. And what's common about all these properties is that they are in the velocity flood zone, and in order to improve them, and in many cases it's absolutely necessary because of just real maintenance, to elevate the homes, and then you need to comply with the floodplain regulations. So this existing house is at elevation 8. The ground level is at 8. And the flood elevation is at 18. And because it's a velocity zone, the requirement is that the lower surface of the floor joists be 2 feet above the flood elevation. So that gets you to 20 feet. And then just the structure above that means that the first floor elevation of a house, to protect it under today's regulations, has to, in this case, be 21 feet at elevation 21 feet, which is 13 feet. First floor has to be 13 feet above the ground compared to the existing house, which is pretty much at the ground level. So this is a 1.5-story house, which would be removed, rebuilt with a 2-story house, and the structure will be up to the 35-foot limit. Now, there are a bunch of nonconformities with respect to this property. One, of course, is the fact that our zoning bylaw has provisions regarding compliance with flood zone. So we have a floodplain overlay district, which this is part of. So we're non-compliant with the flood zone requirements. The new house will be in compliance, so we'll eliminate a nonconformity. Let me bring up the site plan, which up above shows the existing conditions and below it the new conditions. Here we have the sideline to the north is 8.5 feet from the building. That will be increased to 9 feet with the new plan. The setback from the property line of mean high water is presently 35 feet. It will be slightly increased to 36 feet. Actually, I'm sorry, that just to be precise, the setback is measured from the 4-foot NGBD elevation, which is a little bit different than mean high water. The total lot coverage for structures, paving, and parking is going to be reduced from 42.8% to I think it's 36 point, might be 36.9. No, the latest plan is 36.5, sorry. And the lot coverage by the structure itself would increase from 18.7% to 21.9%. So we are eliminating the nonconformance with regard to the total lot coverage. We are eliminating the nonconformance with respect to not being in compliance with flood zone requirements. We are reducing slightly the nonconforming setback from the north sideline. We are reducing slightly the nonconformity with respect to the setback from the Buzzards Bay side property line. And we are increasing lot coverage to the 21.9% by special permit. So that is not a nonconformity, even with the new lot coverage is allowed by special permit. When you grant a special permit to have lot coverage exceeding 20%, as you know, you take into account the effect on views and vistas in the neighborhood. You take into account the average size and height of structures in the neighborhood. And you also take into account the effect on coastal embayments in terms of nutrients. In this case, the property's on the sewer, so there's no impact at all. And even if we weren't on the sewer, it's interesting that this is a case in which in the existing house there are 4 bedrooms. There are small bedrooms, but there are 4 bedrooms. We are reducing the number of bedrooms. There are only 3 bedrooms in the proposed house, but it's on the sewer in any case. Attorney Kevin Clower put together has been this case, but I'm filling in for him tonight, but he prepared and we submitted to the board the list of lot sizes and lot coverage, footprint, number of stories, lot coverage by structure, as required, so that you can consider the average size of other structures, of which we gave you 22 structures in the neighborhood. The average footprint of those 22 other houses is 1,698 square feet. Our footprint is going to increase, but from 1,122 to 1,285. The percentage, the average percentage of lot coverage by structure is 26.04, and as increased, our lot coverage will be 21.4%. So this is not a excessively large house by any means in the neighborhood, and it compares to the houses I've shown you those pictures of, and I have other pictures of other houses in the neighborhood, including, I'll just show you the picture of the opposite side of the street, and again, you'll see that there are not many 1.5-story houses down near the water anymore there. This is the other side of the street. So this picket fence to the far left is our property. Across the street, you can see all these houses are 2 or 2.5 stories. Given the reduction or elimination of nonconformities in this case, given the obvious significant benefit of bringing the house into compliance with flood zone requirements, we think that you would not find that the changes to these nonconformities, the changes to this house, the reconstruction of it, could be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what exists now, and that's the finding you would need to make, in addition to allowing the increase in lot coverage. The Conservation Commission closed its hearing last night, so we don't have their decision. The staff report had no new comments, that is, no concerns by the staff. After a previous meeting, when all items they raised, all concerns raised were addressed, they included the concern about that the engineering department raised about the drainage in the driveway. The latest plans you have resolved that issue. That's your referral from the engineering department is, in that sense, out of date, so to speak. You have a couple of support letters. I think I already mentioned the immediate.
They are in
abutter.
the file.
I'm
we-
sorry,
Ms. Robbins.
Mr. Munn, I did miss that. I was going to make a point of order. It's from a Mr. Kenny and 17 Moses.
Yeah, and I think that his letter is particularly worth noting because he is the immediate abutter. He is the only person who would have a concern about the effect of the addition on his house, on Shadow, keeping in mind that to the north is a town-owned, it's not a parking area, it's except for handicap accessibility, a space or two, but it is a way to the water 50 feet wide, and then there's no house on the other side of it. So this is really quite open a space. And the immediate abutters, Kenny wrote and said that the Mirasolas have communicated proactively and professionally while sincerely responding to any suggestions and concerns. We have reviewed the proposed plans and believe it's attractive and appropriate design that fits in well with the neighborhood, and we're in full support. So, I mean, they're the people who one would think could have a concern. I think that among those concerns are construction, and construction in the summer. And although I don't think it should be made a condition, because it's not necessary for you to make it a condition, the Mirasolas have told the neighbors that they will take 2 weeks off from construction during July and 2 weeks off from construction during August, just so there'll be periods of time in the neighborhood when there won't be any construction going on all day long, which I think is pretty exceptional. I think I've given you enough information. Happy to answer your questions.
Board questions, start with you, Jerry.
Refresh me. Is the cupola included with the max height?
No, it is not.
That's okay.
It's not habitable space. It's by definition not included.
And Concom, or it could be the building commissioner, are they gonna require breakaway walls because of?
Well, let's take a look at the plans, because you'll see that.
I didn't
There are
see
no-
any.
There are no walls except around the stairway and a small storage shed. The lower,
I missed that then, okay.
the
The garage is open?
garage is open. Because of
Does-
there, so,
Didn't want to do that, the COMSCON
Yes. No, thank you. I think, we're probably gonna defer to Concom for some of their conditions. I have no further. Mark?
No, I do, again, this is along the lines of de minimis. The height limitations shall apply to the extension of the structure. But it says height limitations shall not apply to television antennas, chimneys, spires, or minor extensions of the structure strictly for that are ornamental in nature. It's fine, this thing appears to be 4 or 5 feet tall, I'm just, at some point in time, we're gonna have to determine what minor is, but, I don't have any problems with it. As a matter of fact, I might add, Bob, you might wanna take a ride out there and look. That thing is staked as we would like it.
Yeah.
Property lines, as well as corners. It makes it quite easy for us to go there and do our job. Suzanne doesn't have to climb over any fences. It's just what we're looking for.
No, you did a great job.
as always, I do go out to the sites and concur with your assessment of the staking.
Did Concom close last night?
Yes.
They did, and you had no decision, or?
They took it under advisement, as they always do, and they almost never make the decision on the night that they take it under advisement. Under the statute, they now have 21 days to issue a decision. Their policy would be to discuss the case and vote it at probably 2 weeks from now, and then issue a decision. The only issue that was seemed to be open, and we don't think that it is an issue, but I want to mention it because I don't want it to interfere with your decision. That is, I don't want to have to come back depending on what Conservation Commission does. You see, this entire area labeled parking is open so that floodwaters can run under the house without causing any damage or creating debris that can damage other property. The only enclosed spaces are a storage shed here and the entry vestibule. And the policy of the Conservation Commission is to allow up to 200 square feet to be enclosed for purposes like that. Obviously, you have to be able to get up into the structure. So that's what that is. The architectural plans show this north side of the house as a solid wall. There's a window in it, but as a wall. The Conservation Commission, at least the staff, raised the question of whether this area should be open. And of course, this area also, you have stairs going up and then a landing and turning. It's not, they'll be up 7 feet or so. For a number of reasons, we like the solid wall. We like the appearance of it. And we hope that's the way Conservation Commission votes it. We think that will be the case, because they didn't ask us to revise the plan. They closed the hearing with the plans that is, and that's also the way the Conservation Commission usually works. If they want changes on the plan, they would require those to be made before they close the hearing. And we think we're okay, but if it's possible that we may have to make a change in this, and we hope that could be done administratively with the zoning administrator if we have to change that plan.
Are those block concrete or stick-built walls?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but
Are those walls, the dark, are those block, concrete, or stick built?
The material,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I just out of curiosity, it makes, no, never mind.
They'd be wood. They would not be concrete.
Scott, questions?
No, not really questions, comments. It's a very nice architectural design. I guess piggybacking off what Jerry and Mark mentioned, we are right at the building height, the max building height at 35. The cupola does look nice, but, you know, again, we're trying to aesthetically keep things as low as possible. We're right at the building height at 35, but we can address that in the conditions to make sure we get an as-built. But nice job, very nice.
I have no questions. Public comment or questions? Sir, would you come up to the microphone, please?
I'm Charles McCaffrey. I live in Precinct 5. I live in Silver Beach and have, at least for summers, all of my life. I also was chair of the Coastal Resiliency Action Committee. And I have one issue that you might consider. One of the recommendations we made in our report was that when looking at placing houses that are on the water, that if a variance or in consideration of setbacks, that you consider the variance to the street setback before you would consider a variance to the setback from the high water mark or Buzzards Bay. So that under this proposal, it seems you're giving a variance from the Buzzards Bay setback, but there's no request for a variance from the Moses Road setback. We recommended as a general rule that the town, for properties that are on the water, that the setback from the water be maintained, and if necessary, a variance is instead granted from the street. So I only ask that you consider that at this point. You have to look at the individual property. I mean, this, it is a velocity zone, so the force of the waves would primarily come from the Buzzards Bay side, though it will also flood from the Moses Road side. I would mention, in consideration, we know that this is a dynamic area and flooding and storms will increase over the next several decades, and that much of Silver Beach ultimately will be below sea level. But the fronting dune on Buzzards Bay on which these houses exist, by our projections, so it will certainly be impacted, is not going to be below sea level. It will be affected by storms, and Moses Road will be below the water, so it may not be there. But that's a good distance away, so I don't think you need to consider that now. I only ask that you might consider increasing the setback, complying with the Buzzards Bay setback, and reduce the Moses Road setback.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Ron, would you care to address the question or the comment, or you all set?
Well, as you know, the house is substantially in the footprint of the existing house, and it's 25.1 feet from Moses Road. The board doesn't have the authority, whether this is good or bad, the board doesn't have the authority to grant a variance. Probably doesn't have the authority to grant a variance. The situation is not a topographic condition unique to this lot, and you'd be creating a new nonconformance going closer to the street as opposed to the improvement, slight as it is, in the existing nonconformance on the water side. There is a concrete wall near the house on the water side, but what will happen to that in a storm is beyond me.
I think, I know you're filling in for Kevin, but I think you might have been a bit remiss. You didn't mention that this was perhaps one of the nicest neighborhoods in town.
It was a joke.
Mr. Clower always comments that every applicant is the nicest part of town.
Look at this, the
I
nicest-
I certainly, does Kevin usually say that?
Yes.
Every time.
Well, I think there are a lot of nice places in town. A lot of them, most people have never seen.
Any other follow-up questions? Any additional comments from the public? I will say, I did enjoy taking my lunch with what is one of the most stunning views of Cleveland Ledge, right at the, to the north of the house, so. Just board discussion on this project. Gary, I'll start with you.
The biggest thing would be, if we go forward, we condition it on Concom approval. I think he had indicated that he would prefer us not to, that we might be able to do administrative changes. That can be problematic since we're not sure what they're gonna be saying.
I think we can approve with subject to Concom conditions. I believe that the request was that,
Okay,
as to the north enclosure, that if they request that the zoning administrator could approve that administratively without it to come back to the board. And personally, I think that's not unreasonable.
no, I don't think it's, I just didn't know if anything else, that's fine.
Certainly within her talents.
Absolutely.
I agree.
You in favor, you against?
I thought we weren't polling, I'm definitely. in
Well, we're
favor.
not. Always like to
I
give the
like polling, 'cause I
opportunity if
think
things
it-
are going
it
south,
allows
for the
it.
applicant to withdraw. Mark?
I'm good.
All set.
Nothing further? No?
Nope, as I've said, coming into FEMA compliance is a compelling reason. I was a little concerned about I shared the concern about the height, but I'm satisfied, given that the neighbor has said that they're in fact support of the project, so.
I would in the future, like that height to be indicated.
We can ask for a height cert.
You mean with cupola?
With cupola, yeah, I mean, just.
That can be a condition, right? So, what,
The height cert, but it's the ridge line. The cupola is not counted towards the.
well, we
total
could
height.
add that in.
But minor is minor.
He's out there anyways.
Okay.
DSS was throwing it in.
How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to close.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing is closed. No more testimony will be taken. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Conditions? Is there a second?
You got it?
Motion to approve with conditions has been made and seconded. Findings.
Findings, it's in an RC district, it's in a Wild Harbor overlay. Flood zone is VEE 18. There was a previous zoning board in 88. Lot size is 6,000. Public way. Right now, it's 18.7 with structure and 42.8, and it's going down, well, up in structure, 21.9, and down in complete 35.8. Although you did change, Mr. Armand said 36.5, the plan itself says 35.8. The height is 35 without the cupola. It's sewered. One letter that, I do apologize for not bringing that up right away.
There should be a second too,
Is there?
from the tea room owners, yeah.
Did you get another one too?
No opposition offered at the hearing.
Oh, wait, I do see another one. Wait. Express our report. 3 people signed it. No, 196 Crystal Spring Ave. Sorry.
She would be impacted.
Their view would be?
Tea room?
It says full support, so
No.
that's what
Quick,
matters.
well, hey. Sorry.
It's a 240-10-2A, 240-11.3A, parentheses 4,
3 bedrooms?
3 bedrooms. It is 4 now.
Like you just indicated, 3 bedrooms, because it's on sewer, it still would be 4 as a matter of right, so.
Right.
We don't have to condition it, but
Right.
testimony is that it's being reduced to 3.
Right.
I
That's all.
suggest it's in keeping with the neighborhood. FEMA flood compliance having to go up to, currently at 8 going to 18, and an additional 2 feet for the footings.
Concern raised about setbacks from the street versus coastal bank
Yes.
overlay.
We had testimony about the concern, again,
I'm not sure we can, just note it.
that can be part of the record.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Sure. Conditions?
Construction. The applicant has indicated there will be 2 weeks in July where there will be no construction, 2 weeks in August where there will be no construction.
Very considerate.
Absolutely.
Very considerate. Can you move near me? I think that's great.
Neighborhood is a very small.
No, I think that's considerate. I think
We should get a framing as-built for
Yep,
the,
yep, absolutely.
for the ridge height.
conditions also the Concom.
Yep, any Concom conditions per plans, only because it's a tight neighborhood, just have the applicant work with the police department to make suitable arrangements for traffic mitigation and/or storing of any supplies and so on. Incorporate the engineering comments, I said Concom, water comment and upgrades,
Yep.
House numbers.
house numbers, yep. Derek, any additional conditions?
No.
Maureen?
No additional structures
Yes.
absent prior approval.
Yep.
And construction hours?
Standard, yes. If there are Concom conditions that require changing of that north-facing wall, zoning administrator may approve administratively without coming back before the board.
Do we put in no construction on the street? No construction vehicle? All construction on the property?
What I just said was just to work with the police department to come to something
Okay.
that,
I think
that's
they got
getting-
ample
yeah.
room there,
They do. Well,
Okay.
because there's both sides of
I'm not concerned with this application when they're already conceding 4 weeks off in the summer for construction. I think they want to be good neighbors.
Bringing it up, a thing we normally bring up.
Anything else?
No, I think we're good.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is a vote 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
It's nice to do that 2 weeks like that.
Next up on the agenda with application 00823, Rosen Green, Magelsdorf trustees, 182 Sipawisset Road, Falmouth, requesting a special permit to expand the 3rd floor and convert into habitable space.
Again? All right, where am I? Here I am. I'll read it. We have Carl Rosengren and Sarah Mangelsdorf, trustees, 630 Mount Hope Ave, Rochester, New York, applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to sections 240-102A, formerly 230-3C, to the Code of Falmouth to expand the 3rd floor and convert into habitable space on subject property as 182 Sipawisset Road. And from the boards, we have planning has no comment. Water, current water service is 3/4 inch copper, should be upgraded to a 1 inch. The meter pit must be removed and the meter moved inside the home or utility closed on the 1st floor. Board of Health, applicant proposes a new septic system upgrade to 5 bedrooms. The larger septic system appears to accommodate the 3rd floor proposed project. And then we have engineering. Number 1, the application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Sipawisset Road is a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way would require filing a permit with the engineering division. Any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. The project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property abutters or public rights-of-way. That was engineering. Concom had no comment. Looking for letters now before I say anything. Awesome. I didn't write them down. Okay, I have them in. Let me find them in here. There's a letter. My name is John Sheehan. My wife is Rosemary. We live at 178. We are letting you know that we have been informed that some renovations are in full support. Is that only one, Ashley? And that's it, one in support.
And for the applicant.
Once again, Mr. Chairman and members of of the board, I'm Bob Ament. I don't usually do 3 hearings in a night. It's working out. I'd like to point out that the letter that Ms. Murphy just read from the Sheehan's is from the owners of this property, immediately abutting 182 Sipwissa Road. And that's really significant, their support letter, because they're the people who are right next to the house in question. So this is the neighborhood, Sipwisset, near the Cape Codder condominium. The next picture is a little closer view. So this is the property in question. This is the house. It was built originally in about 1910. Before I go further, I apologize to point out that Tom Bunker, BSS Design, again, was the surveyor in this. And the architect for this project is Beatrice Bunker, who is sitting next to Tom. So the owners, Carl Rosengren and Sarah Mangelsdorf, proposed to add 410 square feet to the 3rd floor of the house. It's not a large house, particularly for the neighborhood. It only has 1,862 square feet of finished area according to the assessors. And the proposal, as I said, is to add space on the 3rd floor by adding 2 dormers. Now, the house is non-conforming because a portion of the house is within 10 feet of the northeasterly property line. It's much, on the map and picture in front of you, the line looks like it's close to 178, but actually this line is, in reality, is much closer to the house. And that's shown on the site plan on Mr. Bunker's survey, which is this plan. You can see that these steps on the side of the house are only 1.7 feet from the property line. A portion of the house itself is only 2.3 feet from the property line. So this 100-some-year-old house is close to that property line. The proposal doesn't change the footprint of the house whatsoever. All we want to do is put dormers. This is the ridge line runs through here. There'll be a dormer in the front and a dormer in on the back. And I'll show you that, I think, on another plan. What I've done on this plan, or what I've had Tom do, is show the entire house. This is what you've just seen. And show the area where the work is going to be on the 3rd floor and some on the 2nd floor. It's all within the existing house. I can demonstrate that better with the architectural drawings, although maybe that's clear enough. Let's try this one. Done on this plan is show the southwest elevation. That's, if you've been to the property, that's from the driveway, looking at the house. And this is the existing roof line running straight down here with an existing dormer here, running and hitting the rest of the sloping roof a bit below the chimney. Proposal in front is to put a dormer here. And this is also enclosed space. So instead of having the roof line run like this, you can see it goes like this and then like that. And there's room for a deck here. In the back, there's no dormer now, and the proposal is to create a dormer. So, we're keeping a historic house, although it's not on the town's inventory of significant structures for some reason. We're going to keep this house and improve it with more living space in it. And we've submitted to you the additional drawings, so you have existing floor plans, which existing elevations. This is looking at the street where there is already a small dormer, so on. And we have proposed plans. That's the third floor family room that's proposed, with the roof terrace in the front above that space that's existing dormer now. And that's what the back of the house will look like with the dormer added, where there's no dormer now. This is what the front of the house will look like. Okay. We have a house that's non-conforming because it's on an undersized lot. You need a special permit when you're increasing the height of a structure within a setback if your lot is less than if you're increasing the habitable space in the house, you need a special permit if your lot is less than 20,000 square feet. Our lot is 19,000, almost 20,000 square feet, but it doesn't qualify for that exception. And a tiny, tiny bit of the proposed addition, that is the dormers, and I've got this shown on one of these plans, is just slightly within 10 feet from the property line. Remember, the house is as close as 1.5 or 2.5 feet from the property line. Move further in, we get the house going up 2 stories, and a tiny bit, a mere 6.7 feet, 6.7 square feet, that is about that much space, is within 10 feet of the line. Again, I've shown that on the plans. We have photos of the house here for you can see. It's really a pretty attractive house, old. The first thing for you to do when you have a special permit application to change a non-conforming structure is to determine what the non-conformities are. And I've told you what they are. Sideline and lot size. And then to determine if the changes constitute if they increase the non-conforming nature of the structure. I'd maintain that they don't change the non-conforming nature of the structure at all. And if they don't, then you should make a finding to that effect, and then a special permit either isn't required or is entitled as a matter of law. Now, this is the case, and you don't even need to get to the issue of is it or is it not substantially more detrimental. I think best way to do this is to both make a finding that it doesn't increase the non-conforming nature, and then make a finding that it is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conformities, and you can grant a special permit. I've submitted case law on these issues to the effect that I believe that in this particular case, the applicants are entitled to a special permit as a matter of law. I think I'm ready to answer any questions that you have.
Scott, start with you.
Thank you. No, very nice project. I'm very happy that we're replacing cesspools with Title V systems. Still 5 bedrooms, is that correct?
Are there 5 now?
Going to
No,
find.
there are not 5 bedrooms, and it's not clear that the upstairs room actually constitutes a bedroom. But It might, and the 5-bedroom system will accommodate any use of the house. So we're going to upgrade the septic system, and it's just a good idea if you're upgrading a septic system, and you might want to further expand, or do anything. It doesn't cost very much to put in a 5-bedroom system instead of a 4-bedroom system. So it is a 5-bedroom system.
I might want to ponder an IA system at this point, but, no, nice project. It took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around the dormer being within the 10-foot zoning setback, but that was explained well enough to me this evening, so.
No questions, good project.
Mark?
No, I did have a problem at first with a single stake on the driveway side, but that was just an extra there to indicate that there was a dormer up above. I have no problems with it.
Frank?
When you build the dormers and you convert that area, the attic area to habitable space, you're gonna add 410 square feet of habitable space, is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
So this is gonna be then a half-story, right?
Right.
So what is the square footage of the existing second floor? I didn't see that anywhere.
Half of 1,800, right?
It's under 50%, I did the math.
It is? Okay, I didn't see it. If it is, it,
Taking a
Close to
testimony.
900, so you should be good.
Noreen did the math too, and we're in agreement.
all right,
It's actually on one of the sheets.
it is, okay.
Beatrice says it's right on the plans that we submitted.
Okay, we didn't get the plans, I didn't get them until tonight, so that's why I asked.
Okay. She says that the second floor is 920.5 feet, and half of that would be 460.25, and the actual third floor is proposed is 410.5.
You're okay, all right.
Cross that. Thank you.
Jerry?
Amina, it's a 5-bedroom septic tank system, but you're only asking for 4 bedrooms? You're not asking for 5 bedrooms in this house?
We don't want to have a restriction on how the inside of the house is used. We have a 5-bedroom system, which, as you know, under Title V would allow an 11-room house.
So in other words, we're approving for a 5-bedroom?
Yeah, we don't want to be restricted from having people sleep.
That's what I want to make clear. Thank you.
But it doesn't have to be a bedroom.
Doesn't have to.
I have no questions. Public comment? Anyone? Seeing none. Board discussion?
Good project.
Nice house, nice neighborhood, nice job.
Best neighborhood in town.
Yeah, that's right, you forgot to mention that, Bob.
I'm learning.
Is there a motion to close the hearing? I'll make that
Motion
to
to
Scott.
close.
Is there a second?
Second.
Suzanne, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion is, carries, the hearing is closed, no more testimony will be taken. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion approved.
Thank you, Suzanne, and a second, Scott. Findings.
Findings, let's see what we have here. It's an RB district. The lot size is 19,329. It's on a public road. There'll be no change. It's 10.82 in structure and 16.35 in paving and everything. The height is 32.4. They're proposing a new 5-bedroom septic. One letter was in support. It's a 240-102A, formerly 243C. That's all I have for findings. Rest of the
Why don't we
conditions.
just list that what the nonconformities are as to
Oh, okay.
side yard setback and lot size, that there are no new nonconformities being created by the proposed project.
It's a 2.3 sideline right now.
Additional findings on the right? Conditions? For plans?
Yep, per plans, normal work hours.
Engineering.
Engineering comments, yeah.
Water.
Any of the comments incorporated to the record?
Does this board need a copy of the proposal septic for the record?
They have to go in front of, kind of a condition that
I
they,
just didn't know if we need, as a condition for us to have a copy for the record.
for the septic
Said
tank?
no. Just asking.
Yeah, that's right.
We have work hours, standard work hours? Any additional conditions?
No other structures.
No other structures?
Noreen?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's a vote, 5-0. Thank you. Thank you. Last hearing we have this evening is 01423 Robinson, 594 Palmer Avenue, Falmouth, requesting modification of special permit 4-04 to convert the gift shop into an accommodation.
All right.
Evening,
let's see.
Chairman Morse,
Good
members
evening.
of the board.
We have to read it now.
Forgive me.
We have an application from Jeanette Robinson, 594 Palmer Ave, Falmouth, Mass. Applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a modification of a special permit number 4-04 pursuant to section 240-6.6B, formerly 240-23A of the Code of Falmouth to convert a gift shop into an accommodation. The subject property is 594 Palmer Ave. And from boards, we have no comment from planning. Board of Health, the septic system, wait, there might be two of them. I'm gonna read what I have here. The septic system serving this property is a daily capacity of 984 gallons per day. This suitable for 8 bedrooms at 880 and nearly enough for 9 bedrooms at 990. Okay? Concom has no comment. Engineering. This application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Palmer Ave is a state right-of-way in this area. Any alterations within the right-of-way could require permission from MassDOT. Any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. The project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or rights-of-way. No site work is proposed. And that's from engineering, and that's what I have. Letters, oh boy. Okay, I have 3 opposition? Do I have more? I think more came in today even. Do you know how many total? All right, I'll go through them. This one's in opposition
I think
from,
you could just say the name and address.
okay, Gerald Beesenholt, if I'm saying it correctly, 582 Palmer, is against. This one, oh, this is part of his, he's showing an old plan. This one is from Jeanette. Quite a bit of data in here. There's a Jonathan Stronach, if I'm saying it correctly, 600 Palmer Ave. Looks like an opposition. I think that's what I have. That's it, I think. Wasn't there one more, though? Thought I read one more in my emails. That's what I see right now.
Before we get started, the project wasn't staked out, so I'm not sure how you would like to proceed.
I noticed it was not staked when I arrived.
I went
And
today.
further, not that it's our purview, but I didn't see a building permit either. Not that there isn't one.
Although it's not staked, there might be
No stake.
a number of issues that we want to continue, open the hearing, and then maybe continue it until it gets staked, because I think there could be issues that come up. Rather than just getting it staked and have other issues come up the next hearing.
Frank, you want to weigh in?
Well, I saw that there was a number of letters, including a couple of requests for continuance, because apparently somebody's in the process of doing a survey. I don't know what that will show, so I can't really comment on it. But it seems that, I realize it's not staked, because I went out there myself a couple times, and I didn't see any stakes, which I thought was unusual. But there's nothing structurally going on here, so other than staking the corners of the lot, what are they gonna stake?
Corners of the lot.
Corners of the lot, the only reason I'm kind of personally feeling the same way you were about this, because there was no site work at the same time, though it is a change of use, just to kind of see the
I would would like to
boundaries
see
are with the-
parking stake.
Well, that was part of the thing that,
Well, that
if
would,
we get into, I'm sorry.
that was, one of the comments was that, this property is not in compliance with the previous special permit, which I think is something we need to know.
Right.
And, I think the building commissioner who would be responsible for telling us that.
There was, at least in the email I saw today too, I believe, a complaint to enforcement alleging that, or alleging an issue anyway.
I saw a few complaints.
So, good evening for the applicant, if you would.
Are we
briefly-
continuing, I guess?
Well,
Okay.
I'm just gonna get on the record. Go ahead, sir, in terms of,
Good evening. My name's Tony Patrick Cook, representing the applicant, Ms. Jeanette Robinson. Good evening to the chairman and members of the board.
thank you, counsel. So, the board has struggled the last several months about staking of projects and adopted a policy that the corners of the lots need to be staked for any ZBA project so that the board can essentially see what the dimensions of the lot are and then apply depending on if it's lot coverage or parking might very well be. So, and it's been the policy of the board to continue a hearing, is to open it and continue if the lot is not actually staked at all. So, I think at this point, looking at the appetite of the board, I think that is most likely going to be the outcome of tonight's hearing.
I understand what you're saying, and the only thing I guess I would say about that, why it wasn't, is my understanding, is because it was just,
Site work.
yeah, there's nothing being done outside of a structure, changing the
Change of
use.
use as
The
opposed
structure that's
to-
already
I
been there
understand.
since 1940-something. So that was, I think the rationale behind that. And we're aware of the content of the different complaints or things that were submitted. And I believe that most of that has to do with different boundary lines, or disagreements or uncertainties about boundary lines. And we're, especially with the abutter to the north, has retained counsel. Attorney Peter Daigle, he's fantastic. Perhaps you know him, but I've been, already had discussions with him, and there's some survey work that's been done. There's additional survey work that's is scheduled. Should occur within the next, I think it's scheduled right now for next Friday. So those are being addressed.
Parking. But that seems to be an outstanding, or maybe we don't discuss it. if we're not going
No, but
further.
that's, I think where we gotta notice that that is an issue, I think we have to find out if it is an issue.
That's
Yes,
right.
so I think that we need to, through you, Noreen, through enforcement to see if there's an issue with the previous permit. And then in terms of a continuance, what date are we looking at?
April 13.
April 13th? A date agreeable or workable for you, counsel?
Absolutely.
All right.
I'll make a motion to continue to April 13th.
Motion's been made to continue to April 13th. Is there a second? Second is Scott. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing is continued to April 13th.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
So you'd be requesting staking in advance of that date for
At least 7 days before, yep.
the property? Yeah.
We just asked that the property be staked 7 days before.
And if we
Understood.
can't see, or determine the property line by looking, seeing one stake and the next, mark the line somewhere in the middle so we know where it is.
I understand what you're saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, counsel. That concludes our new hearings for this evening. Next up,
Chairman?
oh, sorry.
Someone had his hand up. Close the
The hearing's been continued, sir. So it'll be readdressed on the 13th of April. You're certainly welcome to add comments into the record, written ones, or to speak at the next hearing. Next up on open meeting, we have the minutes from February 2nd and from February 16th. Are we taking them both up, Maureen?
We are tabling 16, so just a second.
Everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of February 2nd.
Did, yep.
Motion to approve?
Additions or corrections? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes of February 2nd are approved as published. Next up, we have a request for insubstantial change or modification of comprehensive permit 63-20 from Roger Heerman, 24 Kendall Lane, Falmouth, with a vote anticipated. Noreen?
So, Mr. Heerman is requesting permission to finish the area within the storage space on the second floor of his dwelling. And whereas it's from a comprehensive permit, he's required to come back and get an approval as an insubstantial change from this board in order to do that.
Is he here this evening?
Yes.
Care to come up and speak? Thank you for your patience this evening, sir.
No, found it interesting, so thank you. No, we have just recently purchased on Kendall Lane. There's a area above the garage that is unfinished. We are just looking to add a couple of knee walls and turn it into an office. It's pretty straightforward.
What's the total amount of square footage that you want to
It'll be,
finish off?
it'll be 135 square feet because you have to put up knee walls that will take out some of that.
Within the CMRs, Noreen, is that going to constitute an insubstantial change? Okay.
No.
So, under the 40B, so under the bylaws, basically, if the board finds that it is not an insubstantial change, you can certainly come back and petition the board, but it has to be a full hearing. You would have to reopen, if the board says this is not a insubstantial change, it would have to be noticed, reopen up the 40B hearing, and you could certainly make a petition at that point. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Additional questions? Jerry?
No, thank you.
Frank?
No, I thought it was pretty clear.
Mark?
No, it seems fairly straightforward.
Do we have to do anything to prevent it from becoming a bedroom? Is it gonna have the wide casement?
4-foot open.
It does have that? Okay, we're good.
Well, so one comment on that, because the access to the storage room is through a bedroom, correct?
No,
Oh, it's from the hall?
it's from the hall.
Okay,
There's a loft area and there's just a door.
okay, all right. So because of that purpose, they have to ensure that this room does not become a bedroom. So typically, they require what's called a cased opening, which would mean that you did not have a
Take the door
door
off.
for privacy
Has to be 4
with
foot.
that conditioner?
Ah,
4-foot opening, yeah.
It's only 2 feet 4 inches in the hallway. I'm not sure how you're gonna get a 4-foot opening in there.
I'll take a look. Let's see if there's 4 feet there. So 4 feet and no door.
Correct.
You gonna do this with a building permit, sir?
Yeah, that's how I started. I applied for a building permit, and then they said I had to come here.
And you have to address the issue of carbon monoxide coming up from the garage into the space above?
They haven't brought that up. They sent me here first, so I'll deal with that when it comes.
I would suggest, unless the board feels otherwise, that there may be, this plan may need to be reworked a little bit. It might be a little premature before we take it up.
Okay.
Is there fire code sheetrock on the garage ceiling now?
I will check.
I believe there would have to be. We might have to laminate over it.
Okay.
Yeah, so the building department will, I'm sure, cover all those particular requirements as far as building code, right?
So they're mostly looking
Suggestion
at
would
us for
be,
insubstantial or substantial, pretty much.
Right. So, essentially, the understanding would be that you have to ensure that that room does not have privacy such that the Board of Health even would consider it to be a bedroom.
Okay. I understand.
would you suggest at this point asking the applicant to withdraw or just granting him a continuance at this point, Maureen?
Are you gonna require some time to,
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to go,
Yeah.
I can do whatever you want, if
Yeah.
you want me to withdraw it and then go answer these and come back.
I think
can
my
do that.
suggestion would be request a withdrawal without prejudice at this point, which I believe the board would be happy to grant.
Okay, no, I
Not to
appreciate
speak
that.
for the rest of the board, but
No, that's, I agree.
Just anything else, 4-foot opening, no door, check the sheet rock, I got that.
Carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide.
Yep.
officially asking to withdraw without
Yes, I am
prejudice at this
officially
point?
asking to withdraw.
Applicant has requested to withdraw the request without prejudice. Any discussion on the motion?
No.
Or actually, do we need a motion? Excuse me. Yeah. Suzanne has moved it. I'll give that second to Mark. Do we need any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of allowing withdrawal without prejudice, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll
I'll
see you
be
back here
back.
hopefully soon, sir.
I'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have board discussion. Do you have anything that we need to discuss?
Do we ever gonna get the final typed-up version of our sticking policy? We made some minor
Yeah, she
changes.
sent it to us. I got mine in
Send it
email.
out.
Do we vote on it, though?
Yes.
We
So
did?
there is a copy of the
Okay.
current staking as I revised it following our meeting. I don't know, we don't have it on schedule to vote tonight, but I
That's
didn't
what I
know
meant.
if the board maybe wanted to look at it to see if there were any comments, so that we'd have the text correct for the next meeting for a vote.
So
I sent
go
you
a little
some
out of order to
comments.
number 5 to, why don't we add that to a future agenda item for, is everyone comfortable with taking that up at the next meeting?
No problem. Could you forward my comments, or, I don't know, you can't incorporate them without the other people thinking? Yeah.
Anything else under board discussion? Number 4, board updates. I will let you know, and I know that came in at my certification came at the same as Frank's. We've completed the required conflict of interest training through the State Ethics Commission.
To do mine.
Thank you.
If you
I
haven't done yours,
mine.
I haven't done
make sure you
mine.
get that done before the end of the month so that everyone on the board is in full compliance, please. Or else Doreen has my permission to start nagging you.
You have to get in line.
You know, I might have erased that. We got an email on that, right?
Yes.
And I think I dumped that one by mistake.
Well,
Could
because
you
you
resend
need
it,
it.
Ash, please?
Your
You can go to the
email
town website.
and welcome.
Sure, it was by mistake.
It was resent today, but we can resend the resend.
Please. I'm not the world's best secretary.
No, and the link to the test is in the email, so you have it.
Yes, we need that. Any other board updates?
No.
Future agenda items, we will address the staking policy. Any additional agenda items coming up?
I don't know, if you know, I've, in the past, I amended the accessory apartment bylaw, and I am going to craft an affordable housing article for this fall's town meeting relative to accessory structures. And I would ask this board if we could put it on the future agenda and discuss it. I would like and respect any help or suggestions that anyone might have. I believe that, well, I believe my part of this board is amongst the bylaws also is to do anything I can to promote affordable housing. And this, I know it's not gonna solve the problem, but someone I was speaking to about it described it as one more leg in the stool. If you would, if we could put it forward and discuss it later on in the future, I mean, I have till fall, but I'd like to craft it correctly, and I think I could do a better job with the help of all you, if you.
Jerry?
I have no objection to it, but I think you should first go to the planning board, because they put forward zoning changes. We don't.
I have before, and I never went to the planning board. It's,
Then maybe I was mistaken. I didn't think,
Can't put anything at town meeting.
yeah, okay, maybe that's,
oh,
the zoning board put something
Yeah,
in
the
town
planning
meeting.
board has to
Planning
do
board
it.
is someone
yeah,
to
well,
bring it
I
before.
can put an article in, but I'm just requesting,
You just want our input.
your input.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly within our purview, and as I say, I can do it myself, but I think we work extremely well as a board, and
It's an important issue. I just want to make sure the town council's not going to raise their eyebrows
Thank you.
to
Okay.
the suggestion. Otherwise, I'm happy to help you in terms of being a wordsmith. So, which is,
Well, we can look at it, but to follow up on Jerry's point, no zoning article can be acted upon by town meeting without a recommendation to the planning board.
right.
So,
Yeah, but it would be a petitioner's article.
But doesn't matter, they
Well,
still have to do it. But,
I don't even think zoning can
It would
petition.
go before the planning board as a recommendation, but it would still be a petitioner's article.
well, no, you're
which
absolutely
By
right.
right would go to the,
Process-wise, I just don't want to get us into any type of
I think I'm saying the
issue.
same thing.
No, I
In
think
terms
that-
of our obligations as town meeting members, I agree, but we just have to be careful that we're not crossing the line. So I would just want to get town council to weigh in, whether it's, make sure we don't run into an open
asking
meeting
for-
issue or otherwise, but.
I mean, I think the planning board has interest in developing affordable housing as well, and it certainly would be in your benefit and best interest to have planning board support, right?
Well-
For what you're proposing as well.
it would be a petitioner's article, so instead of getting the selectmen's recommendation, the recommendation would come from the planning board, just as the last zoning article that I amended.
But I guess I'd be uncomfortable to imply that it's been reviewed and accepted or reviewed and edited
I'm
by
not
this
asking you
board.
for your, I'm
No, I
just
think we-
asking for your input.
we can take a look at it, but we don't
Okay.
take a vote on it.
Oh, that's different.
That's all I'm asking for,
Yeah.
because I know that somebody here can make it better, help me to make it better. I'm just asking for your input. I'm going to put it in regardless, but I would rather put in the best crafted item possible. Understood?
Absolutely. The intent is clear. It's an important issue and a good one. Anything else? Richard, been quiet all night. Anything? Thank you for being here. All right, our next meeting is March 23rd, 2023, 6:30 PM here in the Selectmen's Meeting Room at Town Hall. Having no other business, we are adjourned.